After breaking my arm, I asked for help bathing. My daughter-in-law left a bucket of cold water and said, "That should be enough." She didn't realize what the camera installed by Adult Protective Services had captured that day. I'm 74 years old, and this is the last thing I ever thought I'd be writing. I'm not someone who makes waves. I raised my son, kept my head down, paid my bills, buried my husband, and stayed out of people's business. I worked as a school secretary for 35 years. I followed the rules. I never asked for much. But this was a line I couldn't ignore. It all started 2 years ago, right after my son Mark and his wife Tasha had their second baby. They were struggling with money, rent was high, Mark had just switched jobs, and they asked if they could move in for a few months. I didn't hesitate. I told them they could take the upstairs bedroom, and the baby could stay in the room next to it. I figured it would be nice having family around again. I still had some energy then, and I loved being around my grandkids. Tasha never liked me. That much was clear from the beginning. She wasn't openly rude at first, more cold. She'd walk into a room and not say hello. If I offered to help with the baby, she'd act like I was interfering. She never once thanked me for letting them live rent-free in the house I owned outright. She called it the house, like it was some Airbnb, and not the home I built with my late husband. It hurt. But I told myself to let it go. Don't rock the boat, I'd whisper to myself. It's only temporary. But temporary turned into over a year. Mark worked hard. 2 jobs most of the time, so I rarely saw him. Tasha didn't work. She stayed home with the kids, but half the time she was on her phone or watching TV while I cooked, cleaned, and folded laundry. I didn't mind helping. I've always been that kind of woman, but the way she acted like I was her maid, it started to eat at me. The real change came after my fall. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon. I went into the garage to grab something from the freezer and slipped on a slick patch near the washer. I went down hard. I knew immediately it was bad. I couldn't move my left arm. The pain was sharp, but what scared me more was the idea of being dependent. I've always been the helper, not the one needing help. Mark took me to the ER, broken in 2 places. The doctor said no lifting, no getting the cast wet, and no sudden movements. 6 weeks minimum in a brace. I nodded, but inside I felt sick. How was I supposed to do basic things like dress or shower? I couldn't even hook my bra with one hand. I didn't want to bother Tasha. Truly, I didn't. But 2 days later, Mark had just left for work, and I hadn't bathed since the accident. I felt disgusting. I couldn't stand the way my body felt. I gathered what pride I had and asked her gently, "Tasha, I hate to ask, but could you maybe help me wash up a bit today? I'll sit on the stool and just need some warm water." She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She didn't even look at me when she said, "I'll get you some water." I waited in my room for a few minutes, thinking maybe she was heating water in the kitchen. I was wrong. She walked in, holding a dirty mop bucket filled with cold water. Probably straight from the tap. No towel, no soap, no cloth. Just a bucket. She set it on the floor by the chair and said, without looking at me, "That should be enough." Then she turned around and left. I looked down at that bucket and felt something crack inside me. Not just my arm. Something deeper. Shame, rage, grief. I can't even explain it. I sat there frozen, the coldness of the water soaking into the room, into my bones. What she didn't know, what nobody knew, was that a few weeks before, someone had noticed a bruise on my arm during a checkup at the senior center. It was from bumping into a doorframe, but I guess it looked bad. They quietly reported it, and an investigator from Adult Protective Services came by. She was kind, and she asked me honest questions. I told her I was okay, but she asked if I'd be open to having a small camera placed in the hallway just for documentation. She said it would help if anything ever happened. I agreed, half out of politeness, half out of curiosity. That camera caught everything. It caught the moment Tasha brought in the bucket. It caught her tone, her indifference, her utter lack of care. And over the next week, it caught more. It caught her calling me a dead weight on the phone with someone. It caught her laughing after she left food on the counter, knowing I couldn't reach it. It caught her taking pictures of my medication bottles and whispering into her phone, "Let's see what happens if we miss a dose or two." I don't know if she was serious or just being cruel, but I didn't take it lightly. I didn't tell Mark. Not yet. Because I had a plan. And it started with keeping my mouth shut and letting the camera keep rolling. After that day with the cold water, I stopped asking her for anything. I'd rather stink than give her another excuse to humiliate me. I taught myself how to do what I could with one hand. I used baby wipes to clean the parts one could reach. I learned to sleep sitting up. I hid the pain. I pretended to be fine when Mark was around, and he never thought to ask questions. Tasha had him completely fooled. She turned it on like a switch. As soon as his car pulled in the driveway, her voice got softer. Suddenly, she was calling me Mom, bringing me a cup of tea, asking me how I felt. One night, I caught her standing in the hallway, checking the window every couple minutes like she was waiting to hear him come home, so she could shift back into her fake self. But what she didn't know was that I was saving everything. The APS investigator had given me a secure email where I could send footage and notes. I started doing that every night, just writing out what she said, what she did, and what time it happened. They told me they were building a file, and that this wasn't just elder neglect, it was abuse. They said when I was ready we could move forward. I wasn't ready. Not yet. Because the more I watched her act like nothing was wrong, the more I realized I needed Mark to see it for himself. I needed him to feel it, not hear about it secondhand. I needed him to understand exactly who he married. The moment that changed everything came 3 weeks later. I was sitting at the kitchen table trying to open a can of soup. I was shaking, my hand was weak, and the can opener kept slipping. I was tired and hungry, and when I dropped the can and it rolled under the fridge, I just lost it. I broke down crying. Tasha walked in, looked right at me, and said, "Jesus, are you seriously crying over a can of soup? You're pathetic." Then she walked over to the counter, picked up her phone, and started recording me. She laughed, and said, "Say hi to TikTok, Grandma." I couldn't move, couldn't even look up. My chest hurt. My face was wet. I've never felt smaller. Later that night, she posted the video. She thought she made it private. She didn't. A neighbor's granddaughter saw it. She told her mom, who called me in tears. That's when I knew I had to act. But before I went to APS, I did one more thing. I invited Mark to sit down with me. Just the two of us. I told him I needed to show him something. No interruptions, no distractions. And I played the footage. I didn't say a word while he watched it. I sat there with my cast still stiff, my arm throbbing, and watched the blood drain from his face. First the cold water clip, then the soup can moment, then the phone call where she called me a useless old sack of bones. Mark didn't speak for a long time, just stared at the screen. And then he whispered, "I didn't know." I nodded. "I know you didn't." What I didn't say out loud, but was burning inside me, was, "You should've." Mark didn't say much after I showed him the footage. He just sat there, staring, silent, like the wind had been knocked out of him. The next morning, I woke up to shouting. I stayed in my room and listened. Tasha was yelling, high-pitched, defensive, frantic. Mark was quieter, but firm. He kept repeating one sentence. "I saw it. I saw what you did." She tried everything, denial, gaslighting, even fake crying. At one point, she screamed, "Your mother is manipulating you. She hates me." Then the front door slammed. She stormed out with the kids. Mark knocked gently on my door. He looked like a man who hadn't slept. He said, "She's staying with her cousin for a while. I need to think." For the next few days, he barely ate. He watched more of the footage on his own. Didn't speak much to me. I think the guilt was hitting him harder than anything else. Not just about what she did, but about how blind he had been. And how long he let it go on right under his nose. That's when the first real twist hit. I got a call from my bank. They flagged 2 recent online transactions, both large, both suspicious. One was for $2,300 to a home goods store in Illinois. The other was $1,100 to a Cash App account I didn't recognize. I don't use online banking. Never have. I go in person. Always. Mark helped me dig through it, and when we pulled the IP addresses, Tasha. She had been using my bank card, ordering things online, and having them shipped to her cousin's house. And she had set up a Cash App under my name, using my social security number. Identity theft. That was the moment Mark snapped. He called her. She picked up smug, and he said, "You're done. Don't come back here." She laughed. Said, "You're not gonna kick me out, Mark. You don't even have full custody of the kids. I'll take them. Try me." Then she hung up. I expected him to fall apart after that. But instead, something changed in his face. Like the guilt turned into resolve. He looked at me and said, "Mom, we're going to take this to court. All of it." The APS investigators were already compiling evidence, but now we had financial theft too. And Mark added his own written statement about what he witnessed, how she left me neglected, mocked me, and stole from me. It got darker. When Mark tried to contact her cousin, where she was staying, no one answered. A week passed, then two. Then we found out she had taken the kids and gone to her sister's place in Arkansas. And she'd filed for full custody. She told the court Mark was unstable, that I was a senile old woman who was abusing medication and falling around the house due to dementia. She said we fabricated the videos to frame her because we never accepted her as family. That's when I realized I wasn't just fighting for justice anymore. I was fighting to protect my son, my grandkids, my home. She thought she could spin the truth. She thought the system would side with her. But she had no idea what was coming next. Tasha thought the court would believe her. She painted herself as the victim, an overworked mother trapped in a house with an unhinged old woman and a neglectful husband. She walked into the custody hearing with fake tears and a confident smirk, sure she'd win. But she didn't know what we had. The APS investigator came in with a binder thicker than a Bible. Inside was every report, every time-stamped video clip, every note I'd sent. She had screenshots of Tasha's TikTok post mocking me while I cried, audio of her calling me names, and clear proof she left me unattended with injuries. She had bank records, IP traces, even the app registration that linked back to Tasha's phone number. Mark took the stand. He didn't hold back. He admitted he hadn't seen it at first. Admitted he was ashamed. But when he saw the footage, really saw it, he said it broke something in him. And he promised the court he'd never let someone hurt his mother again. Not even his wife. Tasha sat there stunned. She didn't think he'd testify against her. But the worst came when the judge asked her one question. "Do you deny mocking and neglecting your mother-in-law while she had a broken arm?" And she said, "That video was taken out of context." The judge leaned forward and said, "It speaks for itself." Her custody petition was denied. Mark was granted full custody, and the judge ordered supervised visitation only for now. Then the financial case moved forward. Tasha had to face a criminal hearing for identity theft and elder financial abuse. We didn't press charges at first. I told them I just wanted her out of our lives. But the prosecutor took one look at the footage and said, "This isn't neglect. This is cruelty." She was sentenced to 6 months in county jail, plus restitution. She had to pay back every cent she stole from me. Over $6,000. Mark froze all her accounts. I got a new card and full financial protection. APS marked my case as substantiated abuse, which stays on her public record. She didn't just lose her marriage. She lost her reputation. No one in her family believed her anymore. Her own sister called me crying, said she had no idea it had gotten that bad.
And Mark?
He moved the kids upstairs, quit his night job, and started rebuilding the house, our house, with me. He cooks.
He cleans.
He checks in. And every once in a while, he says the words I know he means but still sting a little. I should have seen it sooner. I just tell him, "You see it now. That's what matters." Sometimes I still think about that bucket of cold water. How something so simple could expose something so ugly. But then I think about the look on her face when the footage played in court. And I know one thing for sure. That was enough. And this time, the camera wasn't the only thing watching.